Randy, welcome to Louisville, Kentucky.
Thank you, Ted. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to, first of all, thank you additionally for taking the time to write your story, your Farris story, and most of all for being here in Louisville today as we have phase 2, we're calling it, of our Farris Project, bringing in storytellers. We're in this fabulous building dating back to the 1800s, the Civil War, a perfect place to have conversations, talk about things that matter in our life and people who've inspired us. And I remember reading your story about your father, the butcher, and that particular scene that you talked about in your story is very vivid to me.
Yeah, my dad was a butcher by trade. He worked very hard to support us as a family, and I remember one day I was sitting watching TV, and I think I was probably a freshman in high school, and Dad would come home. He had his reclining chair that he would sit in, and he was sitting there, and I just happened to turn around, and I noticed that a tear was running down his face, and I thought it kind of odd. I don't ever remember seeing Dad cry. He was not a crier. But I saw that tear coming down his face, and I kind of was afraid to say something to him, so I went and asked my mother why was he crying? And she said his arm was hurting him, and it had been hurting him all day at work, and it was still hurting him. So it was hurting him to the point where he had a tear running down his face, and it just really hit me.
From his work as a butcher, I guess.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he worked in refrigeration all day long, and
wow,
just cutting meat all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other kind of stories come to your mind about growing up with your father, the example that he set for you? Any vivid memories of lessons learned?
Well, there's a lot of memories of my father, and that was one thing great about the Farris Project. Sharing my story helped me to go back and really think about some of the things that my father had done throughout my life, and he always taught us to treat others the way we wanted to be treated. Yes. And so that was one big emphasis he had. And there were so many stories. One thing, that I have 2 brothers that are older than I am, and we were all in sports, and so he went to every sporting event that we were in. And even though he worked hard and he worked long hours, he would skip lunch so he could come to our track meets.
Wow.
They were always held right after school, so he would still be working, so he would just work through lunch so he could come and support us.
Thinking back on your father that is now deceased, do you ever think about something that you might have wished you to talk to him about more, or something you could have shared with him that would have been important to you?
Yes, actually, Ted, I thought a lot about that before I came down this weekend. I didn't communicate well with my father. I mean, he was there to support us and help us, and we talked, but I never really shared my heart with him. But before he passed away in August of 2000, he was under hospice care, and he was at home for 2 weeks before he passed away. And I think he passed away on a Friday. On Wednesday night, I was setting up with him. We took turns sitting with him at night. And something just compelled me to open up and talk to him and tell him how much I appreciated the things he had done for me in my life. So I just went through a whole bunch of stuff, and I was able to open up my heart. It was hard. Yes. And he couldn't speak at this point through his disabilities from his stroke. He couldn't speak. So I talked to him for about 30 or 45 minutes, and I cried through most of it, but I was able to thank him for all the things he had done in my life. There was a period in my life where I didn't have a lawnmower, and I lived on the other side of town from my parents. He would take his riding lawnmower and drive it over to my house and mow my yard for me.
Wow.
And when I was unemployed for a period of time in my life, I didn't have any money, I was really struggling, my dad would stop at my house on his way home and give me a bag of groceries.
Wow.
And he did that for probably 4 to 6 months.
Great. It's stories like that, and I'm glad you shared that, because it gives me cold chills, frankly, and it causes me to remember my mother's passing 2 years ago, when I sat by her bed and talked to her at a time she couldn't communicate, and I did a little crying myself. And there's a place in life for crying, and I thank you for sharing that story.
You're welcome. I'm just glad I was able to do that, because looking back on that was a great opportunity that if I hadn't done that, I would have really have regretted it. So,
excellent. Great story.
Thank you.